I think most of you heard about behavioral interviews and the competency-based behavioral interviews. However, not many know what exactly the behavioral interview means. A behavioral interview is a job interviewing technique when a candidate is being asked specific questions to describe their past behavior. Since your past can be an indication of your future performance, it helps the recruiters to determine whether you are the right fit for the interviewed role. How about the competency-based behavioral interviews? It is the same interviewing technique, but instead of focusing on the past behavior, it is directed towards evaluating a specific competency. A competency, which is a set of behavior, skills, and knowledges defined to perform the tasks successfully at the job. Which means such questions require a lot more effort rather than just answering yes or no. If we haven't met before, I'm Marat from EMMOTION, myemotion.com, human resources and career services agency. Look me up on LinkedIn. On this channel, I train and coach you to ace your job interviews fast, to gain confidence as a professional, and to learn to deal with corporate politics, being a better person yourself first. So which is the best way to answer behavioral and the competency-based behavioral interview questions? Whenever you come across to a complicated job interview question, think of a STAR interview response technique, which we are about to discuss. It will always give concrete examples of your experience and skills while responding to interview questions. Before we proceed further, I would like to remind you to subscribe to my channel below and hitting the little bell so you won't miss out the latest career and personal growth content. And if you stick with me till the end of this video, I'll be sharing competency-based job interview questions and answers. Concrete answers using the STAR interview response technique. Answers which you could also use during your job interviews. What is the STAR interview response technique? It is a method which breaks down your answer into a coherent structure to show the interviewer why you've got the required competencies and skills. The 4 stages breakdown of a STAR answer technique corresponds to each letter as follows:
situation, task, action, result. Situation
is the first part of your answer, which should set the scene, the tone and background to the example you are about to give. Task is where you discuss the task which you need to perform, what your objectives were, so you can clearly state your goals to be able to quantify your results at the end of your response. Action is the part where you should be dedicating most of your response, explaining in detail which actions you took. It's important to mention what you did, not what your team or someone else did. The interviewer needs to have zero doubts in your capacity of performing the necessary actions by yourself. You could also mention how you decided to perform these actions, giving the interviewer indications of your initiative and decision-making skills. Result. Explain the results of your task. Whether the task was a success or a failure, you need to mention the consequences of your action. You could also state what you learned along the way, the conclusions you've made. STAR technique is also widely used by recruiters and hiring managers to formulate competency-based interview questions. Such questions typically start with phrases: describe a situation when, give me an example where, describe a project or idea that, tell me about a time when, etc. The STAR response method enables you to answer interview questions in a powerful way. You might ask, how? What makes it so powerful? It is powerful because it helps to turn your answer into a story. And people like hearing stories. Facts are easier to remember when told as a story. Stories don't get interrupted. They are a proven method of getting your message across. A STAR story should be about 2 minutes long or less and delivered with energy and enthusiasm. It's about sharing a real experience you've had. It doesn't always have to be a work experience, as long as the story describes a relevant competency, skill, or behavior. Let's go through a few STAR questions and answers. The first two questions are already formulated using the STAR method. It will help us understand this technique better. STAR question 1. Describe a situation when you demonstrated excellent customer service skills and what was the achieved result. STAR answer 1. Situation. A customer rang up complaining that they waited for more than 2 weeks for a reply from our sales team regarding a product request. I needed to address the client's immediate request and find out what went wrong in the usual response procedure. I apologized to the client, got their details, and passed them to our head salesperson in charge of the product, who contacted the client within an hour. I investigated why the request hadn't been responded. I discovered that it was a combination of a wrong phone number and a generic email address provided, which was not being checked by the client. I followed up and informed the client about it. I also offered them a discount code on their next order. Result: the client is still ordering from us and recently posted a positive customer service review about us on Google. You see that the result shows exactly what the initial question requested. Another question already formulated as a STAR question. Tell me about a time when you were in charge of a project with a deadline. In my previous role, I was put in charge of the transfer to a new customer relationship management (CRM) system project, which was added to my usual daily sales calls and responsibilities. The goal was to achieve the migration to the new CRM database, completed by the end of the year, without letting any of my sales numbers slip below my targets. In order to do that, I had to be very careful about how I manage all of my time, so I blocked off an hour each day on my calendar to dedicate solely to CRM migration. During that time, I worked on transferring the data, as well as cleaning out old contacts and updating the outdated information. Doing this gave me enough time to work on that project split in portions while still handling my normal tasks. As a result, the transfer was completed 2 weeks ahead of the deadline, and I finished the year 10% ahead of my sales goal. Giving a response like this shows that you not only handled the project by the deadline, but you've also met and exceeded your sales goals thanks to your organization and time management skills. How about a question which isn't formulated as a STAR interview question? For example, have you ever led a team before? This is a terrible closed question. You could answer yes or no, or you could go an extra mile, showcasing your leadership skills and using this chance to impress the interviewer. So let's formulate a STAR story answer. Yes, a relevant example took place at my last company, where I was initially a software developer in a team of 5, developing a new finance software for our main accounting product. The project was critical as the launch dates had already been set, with a lot of sales and marketing on the product being already ready. However, the project was way behind the schedule when our team leader got sick and had to leave. I always loved the challenge and the responsibility of leadership, so I volunteered to stand in, and by using my technical analysis skills, I spotted a few small mistakes made in the initial coding. These were causing errors and slowing us down. I negotiated with our product director a small bonus for the team involved and some budget for food delivery during evenings. So we did a few late night shifts to correct the coding and catch up with the critical part of the project. Though this took us 1% of a budget, but the software was delivered on time with a better fault tolerance. The project was seen as a great success. The additional project cost was minimal compared to the costs of delaying the product launch. The team was delighted with the extra bonus, and I have been officially promoted to the team leader position as a result. Such answer not only shows leadership skills, but also negotiation and project management skills among others, which turns such terrible question in your favor, showcasing more of your competencies and skills. You could practice your S.T.A.R answer technique further by taking a look at my most common job interview questions, which appear on the right side of the screen. I hope the content of this video helped you learn to formulate your own competency-based answers using the S.T.A.R technique. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to EMMOTION by Marat by using the subscribe button below this video. And check out my next video.